Okay, good evening, everybody. There's a couple raffle registrations still happening. My name is Michael Kelly. For anyone that doesn't know me, they let me use the email address of president @, so I guess that kind of puts me in that role. But courtesy of our Vice President John Winston, we are live streaming on our own YouTube channel. It's being recorded as well. So to all of our online guests, welcome. Happy to have you here at our May quarterly meeting. We've got quite a good amount of information to cover. We'll do our very best to get to everyone's questions. There's a new kind of format you can see, kind of making this a little bit more inclusive. We also have some really fun information to share and report. And the microphone doesn't reach very far. I think fortunately I project pretty well. Let me just see if I can control things from here. Oh, look at that. Aha. So for an agenda tonight, we're going to have an update from the board and talk about the neighborhood bash. We called it our spring fling. It was up at Sunnyside Playground on Sunday, May 3rd. Great turnout. We'll talk about that. We got some pictures to share. That was really fun. We've got some upcoming events that the association is putting together for the rest of the year. We're going to have a treasures update from Neron. I saw him earlier. I know he's here. There he is. And then we're going to have some guests come in. One of our board members, Sarah Bars, is connected in with a lot of the political goings on in San Francisco. So we've got some people that know a lot about the ballot initiatives. Obviously, the ballots have been available to vote through the mail for quite a while. I've turned mine in, but I still have questions, so anyone else here will be able to get some answers to those. You'll see there's a couple of propositions listed. Phil Kim with the Board of Education is an expected guest. There's an earthquake safety and emergency bond. That's near and dear to my heart. My jam, my main gig, getting involved initially in Sunnyside is as the Sunnyside NERT Neighborhood Coordinator. That's the Neighborhood Emergency Response Team. That's what all of my patches and, well, here's my Sunnyside Neighborhood patch, here's my San Francisco radio patch, but everything else is NERT. So I do that for Sunnyside. There's 2,700 residents in this neighborhood, but Battalion 9 has 14 neighborhoods, and they asked me to manage the battalion now. So I'm coordinating the coordinators. So I'm going to talk about that. This earthquake safety emergency bond is important. NERT is a city-sponsored training program for disaster and emergency preparedness. It's a free program by the city. I'm going to share the dates. There's 2 sets of trainings coming up that are on different days of the week, different nights. It's a 6-week program, but incredibly valuable. It's hands-on first aid and disaster recovery and how to triage and liaise and connect with your neighbors to, be resilient, have a resilient neighborhood. One thing a lot of people don't realize is in a disaster, by the very definition, there's going to be more victims than there are first responders. So it's up to us to look out for ourselves and each other, our family, our friends, our neighbors, people we know, people we love, people we don't know that we love. It's just a really important consideration. The fire truck will drive by your house on fire to get to the school. So having fire extinguishers, having emergency supplies, really important. The city will train you how to do that. They will give you the supplies. They give you the helmets and the goggles and the gloves and the go bags and tell you what you need to know to make it those first few days before the responders can get to you. So really important. That's meaningful to me. We're going to get some updates from our supervisor, Myrna Melgar, who isn't here tonight, but Joe? Yes, excellent, good. Joe Atkins is here. We've got some information about the participatory budget. Very close to the finalizing of all the elements that are going to make it onto the ballot. For anyone that doesn't know, there's $400,000 allocated to our district, District 7. We're the only district in San Francisco that has this. Of those Ones that qualify, the top 8 vote getters will each get grants up to $50,000. Sunnyside has put a number of these ballot opportunities together. We formally filed one. We've endorsed all the ones out of Sunnyside, but voting starts May 17th, May 18th, Joe? Oh, okay, good. So it's coming up. The important thing is a ballot measure has to get 400 votes to qualify. So get out the vote is a very big part of this. Sunnyside has had great success with this lately. Out of all of District 7, Sunnyside was good and has gotten better. We'll talk about some community survey and some outreach and some things of what you as residents and members would like to see from the association, from us, your board members. We'll talk about what's on the calendar, the agenda, and take it from there. So, with that, let's see if I can get this to operate that way. Okay, so May 3rd, Sunnyside Playground. It was our spring fling. It was fantastic. Everyone's a little bit concerned about the weather. It was a little rainy in the morning. The beautiful part about Sunnyside, if you don't like the weather, wait 20 minutes. So we had sun, we had clouds, we had a little bit of wind, a little bit of drizzle. Fantastic. This is just a snapshot in time. It was a 3-hour event, an hour setup and an hour breakdown, but we had, I tallied from all the pictures, all the different faces I saw, we had 100 people show up to the event, which is fantastic. I think it's the biggest turnout we've had. We're going to talk about some of the things that happened there. There were stations to make Mother's Day cards. We brought in a bike training expert, taught kids to ride the kick bikes and the pedal bikes and safety. It was fantastic. I saw 3 people sign up as new SNA members while there. So, Darren, I don't know if you were able to track and see if donations came in from that day, but you can, yeah, go ahead. Good, okay. So these are just the things I just want to kind of put out there, what we'll talk about. And then we've put together a survey. We'd like some input from everyone in this room and online on what the survey items should be and could be. And we'll go from there. So I am going to try and make this work. And yeah, so this you can see John in the hat is manning the grill. How many burgers and dogs do you think you cooked, John? Okay, very good. So I don't think there was any food left, right? Yeah. So really good turnout. It was potluck style. The association kind of managed the supplies, the ice, the cups, the plates, but the community came through. Bill, did I see you here? The molasses cookies, the pistachio homemade cookies, fantastic. Yeah, everyone had a really nice time on that front.
For those who didn't attend, there are...
You got more molasses cookies here. They should be a raffle prize. They're that good. So here's some of the early days getting set up going. There's Darren, our treasurer, John, and we've got this gentleman is the closest neighbor to Sunnyside Playground. He literally lives at the end of the walk there. So here's some of the kids that were taught to ride their bikes, and they were taught bike safety, bike skills, bike maintenance. Frances came over from, she came across from Marin. She biked over, of course. She doesn't have a car. It was pretty great, and she was lovely. So there she is with her helmet on. We had some new, there was also a first grade party going on at the park at the same time for the local elementary school, so that we had some nice drifting in and drifting over, which made it really lovely. And yeah, so that's a couple of the little ones that we're learning to ride. That's Arthur. Arthur's got his kick bike. He's very friendly, and we chatted quite a bit about biking. This is Mark and his wife Jerry from San Francisco Rec and Park. They came over to kind of be our liaisons. They're the one that brought all the tables and chairs out, opened up the event or the venue. We got to use the entire property, the basketball courts for the bike training, the lower picnic area, and it was fantastic because we've got, about 100 chairs, about 50 tables, and they've been locked up for years not being used. We put them to use, and it was great. And now we can whenever we want. Now we know how to do that. There's some new families. You can see new babies on the way, and other kids were, you know, having a lot of feelings about riding bikes in front of strangers, but they all warmed up and had a really good time. This is an example of some of the Mother's Day cards that were being made at the station, at that little workshop area. I think Sarah just got something in her eye, but she was running, sorry Sarah, she was running along with everything else. Had her boy there, Calvin, and he had his bright orange helmet on, very noticeable. Calvin's a big personality. But yeah, there was, I think that's Arthur again there. But we had just so much fun. And hey, Cecilia. And yeah, the kind of event, it was just kind of floating from one level down to the next, biking and eating and arts and craftsing. It was really fun.
So the nice thing about it was they got lots of young people to show up.
Yeah, young families, because that is going to be really key part of
their
it.
kids right now, so they're watching it on their, hopefully.
Oh, good, yeah. So again, Frances was great. I was really impressed with her skill and ability to herd cats. That was really fun. A little bit more. I didn't edit these out. I just kind of threw everything on from the videos I took up. But look at all the bikes. And everyone, I think that was Bill taking pictures. Was that you on the photograph or photographer seat there? Bill with the bucket hat. So yeah, really fun time. Back down, lower level. There was some information. Our board member, Rosario, was talking about, yes, right. I will hurry up, and we're just about done. New family members, and yes, that was great stuff. See that? All right. Please come up, Sarah. Please come up, yes. Oh. Sure, yeah. Let's see if I go. Oh, it's fine. Okay. You want me to skip forward to Joe? No, please.
We had a last minute schedule change, so sorry, apologies. Because we have a guest of honor to talk about the ballot, items on the ballot measure. Oops, what happened to, can I go back?
I can scroll up right
Yeah, Sarah, can you do so as you guys know, primaries are coming up, a lot of very important ballot measures and candidates. I'm not a political expert, I'm here to learn, and we have someone who does know a lot more,
No, it's not. Like you can. I'm going to introduce our guest. So, hello everyone. I'm Sarah, and one of the hats I wear is that I am the president of the Westside Family Democratic Club. It's an awesome democratic club. If you're a registered Democrat and you live in our neighborhood, I encourage you to check us out. However, that's not what I'm here to pitch you on right now. I'm here to introduce my colleague on the board of the Westside Family Democratic Club, Jan Chong, who also serves on our policy committee. The Westside Family Democratic Club does a very in-depth analysis of everything that goes on the ballot for both June and November ballots. And so we invited Jan to frankly just walk us quickly through the analysis of what's on the ballot. So not necessarily to present a point of view, but just to give us a high-level overview of what the club considered. And of course, we'd be happy to explain what the Westside Family Democratic Club's endorsements were if you're so inclined. So without further ado, I'd love to invite up Jan Chong to speak to them.
Hello everybody, and thanks for having me. Yes, I'm with the Westside Family Democratic Club. We have an endorsement committee. We do a ton of research. It's an all-volunteer effort. We try to look at analysis of what's going on and make kind of an independent. We talk to the people who put a ballot measure up. We talk to their opponents, and we make kind of an independent assessment of what we think of it. So I will talk a little bit here. I believe you're planning to talk about Prop A later. Is that correct?
It's on the list.
Okay.
We're going to try and make time for that.
Okay. So because otherwise I'll skip it and I'll just go B.
Please, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Okay. So I'll start with Prop B. So there's 4 ballot measures on the June ballot, Props A, B, C, and D. about term limits. So the city of San Francisco, as well as the state of California, has a 2-term limit on elected positions. However, San Francisco has what they sort of, what the people with this ballot measure on the ballot characterize as a loophole, which is that if you can only serve 2 consecutive terms, but if you sit out 1 term, you can then be reelected to another 2 consecutive terms. Yes, so it's a lifetime part of it. Notably, if you've been following in District 3, Aaron Pashman did this most recently. He's probably the most affected by this law directly if it gets voted in. So what this ballot measure does is it simply removes that loophole, so it's 2 terms lifetime for anyone who's seeking office in San Francisco. Okay, so that's Proposition B. That one's fairly straightforward. Proposition C and D I will talk about together because it's very difficult to talk about them apart. They are probably the most confusing and controversial of the ballot measures we have for this June. I'm sure there will be more fun ones coming up in November. So, to give context on Prop C and D, they are both amendments to the city's business tax revenue infrastructure. And so they change how the city collects taxes from businesses operating within San Francisco. And to understand Prop D, you kind of have to go back in time to 2024 and talk about Prop M, which was passed in 2024. So what Prop M did was made a major rehaul of San Francisco's business tax revenue structure. So for many, many reasons, we were in danger of having our business tax base be really reliant on a small handful of companies. And if any one of those companies decided to move out of San Francisco, which by the way has the highest business taxes, I believe, in the state of California, definitely in the Bay Area, that would really threaten our city budget. So it enacted a really broad-based set of reforms to both streamline and broaden that tax base. It was very carefully negotiated with a lot of stakeholders in the run-up to the election, as well as subject to a ton of fiscal analysis as to the impacts of what these changes would be for the city. And it passed, which was a good thing in my opinion. And so now, one of the changes it made is that San Francisco is very fond of adding on little, I don't want to say gotchas, but little changes to the tax code that then become law forever. And one of those changes that we passed, don't remember when, I believe in the past 10, 15 years, is what was then an executive compensation law that said if the CEO of a company made higher than a particular ratio to the median salary of that company's employees in San Francisco, they would be subject to additional tax penalties. Prop M removed that, or just kind of undid it as part of the reforms. What Prop D is seeking to do, and it comes from a good place, which is that the federal government has removed a lot of the subsidies that it was normally grant to the San Francisco city budget. In an attempt to find money to make up some of this deficit, people put Prop D on the ballot, essentially restoring some form of that tax penalty. But however, unlike the previous, actually maybe the previous didn't count, but this version of that penalty, one, would undo the negotiation that was done over the past few years that went into Prop M, where we brought all the stakeholders to the table and kind of made concessions. And two, it's not as well thought out, it's not as backed by fiscal analysis as the previous measure was. And so, it restores the idea of having a CEO's ratio to the median employee globally, not just in San Francisco now. And if that ratio is high, it increases tax penalties on that company. The challenge against how it's currently being marketed in San Francisco is that most of us imagine that Sam Altman or other tech CEOs will get hit by this penalty. High margin companies that make a ton of money can afford to kind of not see this money go into their pocket but into the city coffers. However, most companies in those categories have ways to structure compensation such that they would not be touched by this provision. Instead, current analysis says that it is most likely to affect pharmacies, retail, and grocery stores. And so these are businesses that are already kind of having some tough times in San Francisco, and we don't know how the businesses will react to it. They could leave San Francisco, they could pass it on to consumers, but that is the demographic that they actually think that this measure will impact the most. Many companies, many places are still doing more analysis on this measure, so you may see more data as it comes out, but of course, ballot's already here, so that's the information we have right now. Prop C was put on the ballot to offset Prop D. In actual effect, what Prop C does is make slight modifications to the previous tax code. The previous tax code change, Prop M, exempted small businesses that only made $5 million in revenue from having to pay the new taxes that were enacted with it. Because of the rise in cost of business over the past 2 years, Prop C increases this exemption to $7.5 million. So if your business makes $7.5 million or less, sorry, has revenue of $7.5 million less, which is how much money you bring in, that is not how much profit you actually make, so the cost of doing business is subtracted from that, then you're exempted from this tax policy. That's in effect what it actually does. It's a pretty minor modification. It's probably a good modification for the city. However, its primary purpose of being on the ballot is actually to offset Prop D. Because if Prop C has more votes than Prop D, it will effectively nullify Prop D, even if they both pass. So that is in kind of reality what Prop C is doing. Any questions about that? These are by far the most confusing things on the ballot for the upcoming election.
Is it 100 times? Is the earnings of the CEO?
There's a ladder, I believe, that goes up depending on what the ratio. I think it starts at 30, but there's some excellent explainers out there. Yes, Sarah. Yeah. Because most people think of tech companies. I'm going to use tech companies as sort of like the target company. But most tech companies first, the lower paid employees like custodial services or catering, those are actually contract employees, so they would not be included in that median number. Customer support also generally, A, they're not in San Francisco, but B, they're contract employees, so they wouldn't count in the median salary of the employee for the company. This is kind of standard how tech companies operate. Also, CEO compensation at a tech company is often not taken in salary. So Jack Dorsey of Twitter, for instance, paid himself $1 in salary for every year when he was still CEO of Twitter. So like, he's a billionaire. So obviously that didn't hurt him, but by the salary ratio around compensation, right, Twitter would be exempt from this policy. So there's just many ways for tech companies to structure their compensation so that they are not like party to. However, grocery stores, pharmacy, and other retail chains usually directly employ not frontline workers, but like cashiers and their staff, and therefore they would have a lower median salary relative to, say, the CEO of Safeway or Walgreens, and so therefore they would be hit exceptionally hard by this tax code. Yes?
But what was the point of them even making this law or putting it into? Why? I don't understand.
It's an attempt to find more money for the delta in the budget because the federal government, under our current administration, has removed a bunch of subsidies that it would originally regularly give the city. And so there's kind of a gap in the budget, and this was a proposal to fill that gap.
But it's not going to affect the very wealthy, though.
It is unlikely to. Current analysis believes that it will not.
But it will not.
Yes. The cost of Prop C is predicted to be a deficit of about $30 million by removing a tier of small businesses from the tax base. I don't know if it's permanent or if it's only for a certain amount of time, but that is the predicted impact of Prop C.
Are you able to share, I always find it useful in ballot season to talk about who is funding proponents and opponents of each measure. There's an Mission Local article, which was great, supporting local journalism, from last week, talking about the major sources behind these. I'm happy to share it if you'd like.
I don't remember the Prop C funders offhand. Prop D, labor unions, Connie Chan helped put it onto the ballot, and don't have the full list, however.
Both were signature collected.
Yes.
Prop C's primary funders are Chris Larson, the Ripples CEO billionaire, Michael Moritz, a long-term billionaire, and everyone's favorite company, PG&E. Prop D's proponents are labor unions, and the people against them are a lot of the same billionaires. So I feel like that's pretty much it.
Prop C and Prop D. So which one passes with more offsets the other if they both pass. It's a little bit of a complicated scenario. Yeah, it's like Prop L and Prop M and George. Okay, do you want me to go through the other races? I'm not sure who else you have lined up to speak here. I can do that really quickly.
Sarah, did you?
Okay. Want to or have already have? Okay. Yes. Oh, well, we actually did all races, so I can just go through them really quickly. That's why. That's why I'm like offering. Okay, sorry, I'm not used to talking to a mic. Okay, so the other ones are judge. One of the judges is up. Two candidates up that race: Alexandria Prey and Phoebe Maffei. Phoebe Maffei, I apologize if I'm messing with her name, has been a prosecutor. Alexandria Prey is a public defender. Frankly, they're both super, super qualified. Weirdly, judges are not allowed to talk about their actual track record when they're campaigning, which is what we're electing them to do, is actually make decisions. So you kind of only get to evaluate how they talk about their judicial thinking. In that, they honestly are both extremely qualified candidates, and I think both will be great at this job.
And where they were currently, prosecutor versus defendant.
Yes, yeah, you can kind of take that data from there. You can, but there, I think in this one we have two very qualified candidates, which is great. School board, there are three candidates currently in the race for school board. Phil Kim, who is the incumbent, he is the current president of the SFUC, the Board of Education. Brandy Markman, and Virginia Chung, who's a late entrant in the race. Of those three, Phil Kim is an educator, has been kind of doing the job. I think one of the big things to consider when voting in this race is the fact that the SFUC faces some pretty harsh fiscal realities and is constantly in threat currently of state takeover, and need to basically find a way to come up with a viable budget to prevent being taken over by the state, who will then appoint someone who will essentially slash and burn what we have set up in order to make that budget work. Oakland just came out of it. It was a very unpleasant process for the entire school district and communities. So we'd rather kind of be in charge of that and have those decisions be informed by local voice. Phil has been doing the job. He was appointed by London Breed, I believe, and so now he's being elected to his first full term. He's been pretty good about being fiscally responsible and understanding kind of the pragmatic realities of what's needed to fund the school district. The other two candidates, Virginia is new. She's a parent. She's a preschool consultant. Very well-intentioned person. She does not have a lot of experience outside of thinking of preschool education and the broad operational realities of a very large school district. I actually think she, with time could kind of develop some of that, but like right now she's like relatively inexperienced. Brandy Markman is, I would characterize her as being more aligned with the old school board members that were broadly recalled by the city. She presents a very strong point of view for what we traditionally term progressive values. Our assessment and analysis of statements she's made tend to find that she has an interesting relationship with the truth and facts. But you can go look and judge for yourself on those ones. So those are the three candidates for school board. Am I missing anything? You guys already talked about insurance commissioner, right? Oh, yes, sir. Please.
I just want to add on the school board. I don't know if anyone else here is an educator. I work in schools in the city, work at VSF. Our sole endorsement from the teachers union is for Virginia Chung selection. Happy to talk about that why.
Yes, I think Virginia's perspectives are very strongly aligned with the teachers union of all the three candidates. Our club's concern was relatively new experience for the role. Okay.
I don't think we heard about insurance commissioner.
Oh, I thought you guys had done research on it. Oh, okay. All right. So going into we don't opine too much on state races, but we did on insurance commissioner for a couple of reasons. One, Patrick Wolf, who was running for state insurance commissioner, is a San Francisco local who's done a lot of work for us. But looking, so I'm surprised that we endorse him. But looking more broadly, there's a lot of candidates in the race race for insurance commissioner. I believe there are 9 people in the mix. Most of the time, insurance commissioner on the state level, so stepping back, insurance commissioner probably should be an appointed role. It's a very technical role that requires a lot of know-how in order how to make the insurance market work. In most other states, it's an appointed role. Here in California, it's an elected role, and not only that, it's an elected role that traditionally has been filled by someone who's like termed out of their current position and looking for a role to occupy. So it has not traditionally been filled by people who have a lot of expertise in the insurance industry. Most notably, the incumbent, George Laura, has frankly done a very, very bad job of regulating the insurance commission and setting rates for insurance within the state of California. And as a result, a lot of insurers have fled, and we have kind of a very weird situation. And a lot of that played out during the Pacific Palisades fire, when people went to make claims against the insurance and found that they were unable to, that the insurance companies were claiming insolvency. Anyway, there was a whole brouhaha about that. It's in a very, very bad state. Laura has subsequently started to produce some reforms that hopefully get that into a better state, but he's very unpopular, not going to get reelected, he's not your money. And so we now have to choose between 9 different people that want to replace him. I'm not going to go through all 9 candidates. I'm going to talk about the top front runners, and I will note that as, well, I guess we're not talking about artists, this is big business. So the one who has had the most endorsements in the race so far is Patrick Wolf, and that is because he is the one with by far the most expertise on insurance of anyone in the race. He got his insurance license, he's done a ton of research, he worked as a financial analyst around the insurance industry for 2 years, so he's kind of like deeply familiar with the dynamics and the kind of quantitative, economic considerations you want to have when you set policy and rates in this area. He's also pledged to never run for another public office. He only wants to be in the insurance rate in order to kind of fix this mess. Like, he's not using it as a stepping stone for like state senate or governor or anything like that. So that's a little bit about Patrick. I'm sure he would actually come talk to this group if you wanted him to, because he is available. The other, but I'll say if you want to hear a little bit about the other top candidates, Ben Allen is a seasoned state legislator who used to who represented the Pacific Palisades area, and based on his experience of how badly things went there, he kind of wants to come in and fix it. But he is a legislator, not kind of an insurance analyst, and so you have to weigh the fact that he would probably be able to get legislative change around the insurance policies done with the fact that his actual job is to set rates and work with the insurance companies, and he's probably less qualified and informed on that aspect. The third, I would say, pretty qualified candidate is Merritt. Unfortunately, I can't remember his last name. He's Republican. He is a lawyer that sued the insurance companies again after the aftermath of the Pacific Palisades fires and everything that happened there. So again, very, very informed about kind of the impact of how those companies have worked, and again came into the race to try to fix some of that. I would say those 3 kind of have the most solid grasp of the situation, with sort of different areas of expertise and different tools that you could use to try to get insurance to a better state. The other big name candidate, especially here in San Francisco, is Jane Kim. So she is running on a platform that's very similar to the insurance fund that we already had, that we currently already have, that people are supposed to tap in and pay into and draw out from. I think the challenge with that is most folks in the industry just simply think that's not really a viable model for California and would leave us in a much worse state should something happen, say, in San Francisco, where we are facing this. So, I don't know everything about all the candidates on this race, because we've had them, so. Any questions on that? Yes? I believe it's been a while. Do you remember? Prop A. Yeah, why don't we do Prop A and then we can figure out what to talk about.
Oh, sorry, repeat the questions for YouTube. So we'll work on that. Again, Michael Kelly. Proposition A, as a layperson but active in emergency preparedness and disaster recovery, is as a bond measure, $500 million, $535 million being proposed to revamp and seismically upgrade police stations, fire stations. Of particular note, the water system that the fire department uses. Most damage around the world, but especially San Francisco after an earthquake, is fire. So, did you have a question? Oh, sorry. So there are a lot of concerns though, because there is a tendency that projects like this get kind of brought into transportation infrastructure, like Potrero Yard, which is in need of a major overhaul. It may very well pull out a significant part of that $535 million, $500 million. It would be funded as a bond measure. Ultimately, property owners, taxpayers would pay that bill. What's important to know, I think, is that Mayor Lurie supports this. All 11 supervisors support this. The fire department chief, Crispin, supports this. That's who's for it. The people that are against it have very good reasons to be against it. San Francisco's incredibly already debt laden. I'll take my board and president hat off. Me as a person living in Sunnyside, I think it's really important that we have the right equipment and safeguarded and access to high pressure water systems to deal with the when, not if the disaster hits it. We don't know when it'll be. It could, we've had this late kind of swarm of earthquakes, relatively minor, but very, very significant. So putting my hat back on, we're an apolitical organization. I'm trying to just share general information about Proposition A. Again, the people that don't think it's a good idea are very concerned, rightfully so, with the amount of debt that San Francisco City and County carries now. $500 million is no joke. Happy to take any questions. I'm not an expert. This is just, again, a layperson's knowledge of it. Anyone? Thoughts? Sarah? It's going to have an increase on property taxes for homeowners. Yeah. But it doesn't start for a ways down the road. So that's one of the things the people that are opposing it saying, you know, it's one more kick the can down the road. It's debt we have to deal with later. So where should our money go, I guess, is what you all need to make your decision based on. Yes?
My name is David Hooper, and I'm from Terrace.
Hey David, thanks for coming.
Last Saturday, District 11 Council voted to support a bill on A. One of the issues, besides the ones that we raised, was the idea that it wasn't addressing the emergency firefighting water system, which is heavy on the downtown part of town that doesn't include west of 19th Avenue, or basically OMI, the Ocean View, High Tableside, Excelsior District. So
Okay, so can you just repeat, the supervisors voted on this, you said, or council?
District 11 Council.
Oh, God, okay, so for the people online, David Hooper, right, is sharing that there was a recent vote. District 11 Council has brought up that and decided they're not endorsing A, they're against A because of not addressing the high water pressure fire system for certain parts of the city west of 19th Avenue. Did that? Okay, thank you very much. That's really helpful. Anyone else? Anything about Proposition A? Sarah, would you like to talk about Congress? Oh, good, please. Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Let me give a quick rundown of the congressional candidates for San Francisco.
Can I ask you to slow down a little bit and speak up?
Yes, sorry, I was just trying to keep us on schedule. I'll try to slow down. I will try to give a quick rundown of the 4 congressional candidates that are up for Nancy Pelosi's old seat, or current seat. Marie Hurabel, and Connie June. So those are the 4 groups that are running. There's more, there's always more people, but those are kind of the 4 top contenders for that seat. Scott Wiener, I would assume people are somewhat familiar with, but he is the current state senator for for all of San Francisco. And for District 11 in the Conference State Senate. He has been an incredibly prolific legislator. He's probably one of the most effective at generating legislation in the state Senate. He was a Board of Supervisor member prior to his election to state Senate, so he made the transition from city politics to state politics relatively, I would say, well. He's been behind a lot of the pressure that is around the state to build new housing has been a result of Scott's work in the state Senate. So if you like that, I think Scott is probably your human. If you do not like that, then Scott is probably not the person you want to vote for, but I think those are some of the areas he's been most effective in. I can run through a couple of his more controversial positions. He is very, very pro AI regulation. In fact, sponsored a bill that made it all the way through the Senate, but got vetoed at the very last minute by Governor Newsom that would make California a leader in regulating AI. If you like that, that's again a positive thing. If you don't, he will probably continue that work in Congress. And then he also, probably one of his most controversial ones was a ban on police stopping people just for walking on the street. Or it was being used to talk to folks who were suspected of prostitution, and he argued that it was kind of unfair to trans and other members of the LGBT community, so that's now illegal. However, it has had the effect that sex trafficking work has been harder for the police in many jurisdictions to fight that. So that's probably one of his most controversial in effect. He is not afraid to pass laws that take a sharp point of view, so I would say many of his law changes are quite controversial. So those are probably a high-level overview of what he has very strongly stood for and will likely carry over to Congress. Schweikart is interesting. He was, as many people know, AOC's chief of staff for a while in Congress. So I would say that what Schweikart brings, he used to live in San Francisco, he moved to DC, he bought his parents a house in Maryland, if you believe him. It was not his primary address. And then he moved back to San Francisco, I believe largely probably for this congressional race. He, on the national scene, has more experience than any other candidate. He's actively worked in Congress, he's actually worked to pass legislation. The Green New Deal was a lot of his work. He is one of the Stripe founding engineers, so he is very well versed in tech and he brings his own money. However, he's on the very progressive side of Congress nationally, which sort of makes him a bit middle of the road here in San Francisco as far as policy positions go. But he's probably more experienced than everyone else on the national level. Having kind of met him and talked to him and looked at his agenda, he is probably the best when you're thinking about how to create a movement amongst Democrats nationally to push progressive issues across the country. However, I think the trade-off for Schweikart is that he's definitely much less informed about local issues than any of the other 3 candidates in the race. You're taking someone with a ton of national expertise and a bit of a firebrand, not afraid to throw elbows nationally, but in exchange for that, he definitely does not have the same grasp of what concerns are locally, what different neighborhoods care about, think about, and what they want. So you get an operator that's effective, but maybe less in tune with the local city. The other 2, Marie, I know the least about her because she entered the race the latest. She was a registered Republican for many years. Trump appointed her to the Presidio Trust. She is one of the people behind Connected SF, so she's done a lot of work in the city trying to mobilize neighborhood groups and get people together and kind of make, sort of very similar to this neighborhood association and what we're doing right now, help people lobby for what they want, understand what the choices are that are being made at a city level, and kind of promote or against that. She probably runs a little more more to the right than I would say the majority of standard San Francisco candidates, but she's kind of advocated for a lot in the city and therefore has quite a lot of connection and reach, and I think a strong awareness of, especially the neighborhood associations. I would say she's done a lot of those spaces. So that's great. Or what I know of her, she entered late again, so I have the least knowledge of her. And then Connie Chan, who is the current supervisor candidate for District 1. I think she actually, her track record on the Board of Supervisors probably reflects her district's constituencies very, very well. She's known Great Highway. She generally has done her best. She doesn't pave the way for new housing in her district, let's say. District 1 actually had the least new housing build of all districts in San Francisco. I think I double checked that number just recently, and it's like maybe now number 2, but it's like they're not building a lot of new housing over there, and she's been directly involved in some of that. She does try very hard to create labor-friendly policies and legislation in the Board of Supervisors. I will say I think it's very well intended, and she tries to do that. I have found in my analysis that her policies tend not to be as well considered as some of the others that people do with side effects, but that is definitely, she is consistently trying to do a lot of work. So that's funny. Any questions? Yes. I do not. I would say that probably AOC is waiting closer to the election, but there's also controversy around whether she was fired or not as her chief of staff. I don't know. I don't think I imagine actually that she probably will, just later in the race. She traditionally endorses much later in the race. That's like Washington level inside baseball, and I think it's a San Francisco issue. So. Other questions? Okay. I will say all 4 congressional candidates have done a lot to make themselves very available. So if you want to know about more of them, there's many events where they're available to speak. Blue Shweka has a weekly Zoom call. So Connie, I literally ran into on the street like last Saturday walking around canvassing. So like they're very, very available. Okay. Yes.
Are any of them supported by labor?
Connie Chan.
Connie is? Okay.
Is the labor candidate. Okay. Sorry? Yes. Except the Carpenters. The Carpenters are probably behind Scott. Yes, sorry. Which candidate is supported by labor was the question, and it depends on the labor union. I would say the vast majority are supporting Connie Chan, as they have in her previous races, with the exception of the Carpenters Union, which has always been pro-housing, and so they follow the candidate that generally has the most pro-housing policies, which in this case is Scott Wiener. Oh. We did not especially research the governor race, so I can just give you a brief overview, which 2 Republican candidates, 8 Democratic candidates. The primary is, well, the top 2 vote getters in the primary will move on to the November election. So the Democratic Party has been trying to coalesce support amongst its stronger polling candidates and force out candidates that are doing less well. I will say one of the reasons they were a little hesitant to do so, I believe, is because most of the lower polling candidates were either candidates of color or women, and so they were a little hesitant to make it like an all-white men race. But then Eric Saul got in trouble, and so they forced him out of the race for sure. Betty He dropped out. She has a lot of institutional support, but not a lot of polling numbers. So kind of the remaining Democrats, I don't know much about the Republicans because we didn't. The West Side Democratic Club can only endorse Democrats, so that's a little bit of the reason I know a little bit less about the Republicans. Matt Mahan, who is very Scott Wiener technocrat style mayor of San Jose. He entered really late. Tom Steyer is probably one of the top 2 candidates at this point. It's a little hard to know. It depends on the polling. He's a billionaire. He's thrown himself more recently into green causes and climate change and tried to do a lot there with his money and his time. Xavier Becerra. Actually, know the least about him. He's probably, I would characterize it as a kind of establishment Democrat who's gone. He's just had a long career in state government. I've heard criticisms of his fiscal policy as being somewhat unrealistic, but again, his fiscal policy as being somewhat unrealistic, but we did not do the same level of deep dive, as you can probably tell from my answers, that we did with the San Francisco City candidates. And I feel like Katie Porter is the other one, former congresswoman, so long track record operating. She's actually probably a pretty strong candidate in my opinion, except that she's been hamstrung by these videos where people saw her kind of yelling at an aide, and that has kind of given her a disadvantage of the race.
Does anybody know who's ahead of the Democrats? Who's polling ahead right now with the Democrats?
I believe Xavier Becerra and Tom's, sorry? Becerra, sorry. Xavier Becerra and Tom Steyer are currently considered the front runners, but I haven't, again, done as much depth of research. Yes.
There was a lot of hue and cry that this jungle-style primary, there might not be a Democratic candidate running out. Have you kind of gleaned anything from that you can share? Or I see the Chronicle says that's less of a concern for Democrats now?
It is less of a concern because Trump endorsed Steve Hilton, I believe, the more extreme Republican candidate, and there is a belief that as a result of that, that candidate, like the Republican vote, will not coalesce quite as much. And honestly, in California, it's the independents that frankly decide on the state level, will likely not like that endorsement, and therefore will then skew towards a more Democratic candidate. So that's kind of the math on why the fear around that has somewhat lessened. It is still a distinct possibility. I think the odds have it at like 15%, something like that, on prediction markets, if you believe prediction markets. Yeah. Any other? Sorry, the governor clearly not doing as much research on governors.
That's great. Right on time. This has been so helpful. Round of applause. I'd like to bring Joe up to the microphone here. We're always so privileged to have great representation from our supervisor, District 7. You've seen Em in here, Jennifer, Myrna many times. Joe, please come up. Thank you for coming.
Of course, of course. Hi, good evening, everyone. It's nice to meet you all. My name is Joe Adkins, and I'm filling in for Emma while she's out on family leave for the next few months. So I just started in Supervisor Malgar's office, and I'll be there through November, taking over all of Emma's priorities. So that includes small business, transportation, and particularly what I'm here to talk about tonight, which is the participatory budget process. I don't think I'll have quite 30 minutes of updates on participatory budgeting, but it sounds like folks in this room are very familiar with the participatory budget process. But for those that might be a little less aware, it's a really cool process that only exists right now in District 7. So the other district offices don't have this really great opportunity. And the way it works is that each year, kind of to take a step back more broadly, the way the San Francisco budget as a whole works, the mayor of San Francisco presents a budget to the Board of Supervisors, and then the board has a couple months to really go through it with a fine-tooth comb and tweak a few things, and then see if the mayor's okay with that, and then if everyone's good, then that's the city budget. So the city budget is largely written by the mayor, and the board has the opportunity to make a few changes, but it's still a big bucket, mostly the mayor's thing. For participatory budgeting, which again only exists in District 7, there is an opportunity for members of the community to submit proposals. Here we go. To submit proposals, yes, and that's okay. Proposals for ideas that they would like to see come to fruition in their community. Proposals need to be submitted by neighborhood groups or organizations or nonprofits or neighborhood associations. Can't just be from one person. It needs to be something that will benefit the folks of District 7. So a District 7 participatory budget proposal can't be for something in District 3. It has to be based here in District 7. So folks submit their proposals. Oh, they also have to fit into one of 4 categories: health and safety, neighborhood beautification is a big one, Vision Zero, another big one, and then this year we've added Let's Go San Francisco, which is just vibes, baby. So that I guess would be anything else that isn't of the other 3, but that does impact the good folks of District 7. So the office received a few dozen proposals for lots of different things. You know, I don't know what the usual is, just because this is my first year in the D7 office, but I think it's been around a couple dozen the last few years. So once our office receives the proposals, we need to make sure that they're doable, basically. So as was mentioned earlier, there's a pot of money. This year, the total pot is $550,000. For each one project, if it's approved, it can receive up to $50,000. Now there's also a kind of a separate bucket of funding for Vision Zero projects. So that's traffic calming, that's pedestrian safety. So there's a bucket of $150,000 for Vision Zero projects, and then a bucket of $400,000 for all the other projects, combined $550,000. So proposals have to fit into one of the categories of priority areas. They need to come from D7 folks, they need to benefit D7 folks, we talked about that. Once we have received all of the proposals, what our office does is we share them with the city department that would be implementing the thing, should it be voted on and approved. So we want to reach out to those departments and say, community wants to build this really, really wonderful thing in this location. Is that possible? Is that something we can do? Just start a conversation. Is that something that would fit within the $50,000 budget? And we spend a couple weeks talking to the different departments to help kind of refine the scope of the proposal a little bit, because for example, what if the geographic location for someone's idea for their proposal is actually not on city property, but it's on private property? That's something we can't do. Or if it's something that you think it would be about $50,000, but then the department that has all of the expertise comes back and they say, actually, it's a really specific machine that does this, and it's a very expensive machine, so actually this project might be $100,000. That would be a no-go. So just kind of, or there might be a department that says, this is a really great idea, and it's actually something that the department already does, so we don't need an extra $50,000 to do this. Maybe we can just kind of bump this up in our priority area of locations for places we were already going to do this kind of work. So our office has a pretty robust conversation with the different city departments talking through these proposals. If the department comes back to us and says, they asked for ABC, and I think I understand where they want to go with this, but it would be more feasible to do X, Y, Z, then we reach back out to the applicant and say, this is what the department, just to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page. After a couple of weeks of doing that, and talking to the applicants and to the departments, all of the information is put together in a packet. Each proposal has its own packet. And those are forwarded to a community review committee, or CRC. The community review committee is a group of really great District 7 folks that are selected by District 7 Supervisor Mirna Melgar, and they kind of take the first pass at all of the proposals. So this CRC has received all of the proposals. They are reading through them and digesting them. We're going to be meeting in the next week or so to talk through each of them, and that review committee is going to do a first pass of voting on all of the proposals. The proposals that the CRC approves are then going to be put on a public ballot that everyone in District 7 who resides in or goes to school in District 7 and is 16 years old or older, everyone can vote on the proposals that the CRC has put through to the next step. Voting will be open for, I think it's about 2 weeks. And then once we've received kind of the will of the San Francisco voters, if you will, then those winning proposals that can fit within our overall bucket of money of $550,000 turn into legislation. In this case, turns into an ordinance that goes to the Board of Supervisors. I have no reason to think why it wouldn't just pass and fly, go through the board process and pass with flying colors. And then, perhaps the most important part of the participatory budgeting process is the District 7 office continues having conversations with the departments to make sure that they spend this money that has been allocated to them. Because sometimes, I've in the last couple weeks been informed of situations where sometimes it takes the department a little prodding to make sure that they keep to their word and accomplish a various proposal that's been funded. So that's where we are with participatory budgeting. We did extend these by about 2 weeks, the dates at the top there. So we right now are in the community review period. That's when the community review committee, as I said, they are reviewing the proposals, and they will be taking a vote on which ones they like best. And then the public voting period will be June 1st to June 15th. So that's where Supervisor Melgar will be including this in her newsletters. We'll probably be posting a lot on social media. Feel free to share the word with your friends and neighbors as well, because we want to just get as many District 7 folks voting as possible for a lot of these great projects. And there are a lot of really, really cool projects. This is my only year. I don't really have anything to compare to, but it does seem like this is a really cool batch of ideas that folks have submitted. Yes?
I think last year there were 10 ballot submissions. Sounds like there's going to be many more than that this time. Or do you have a sense of what the review period is likely to come up with, like the number of completed ballot?
I don't. And the 10 is the 10 that you're mentioning what was put on the public ballot, or yeah. So we have there were about 30 something total proposals. About 7 of those, a city department either said this is completely unfeasible, or this is work that we're already doing that we're happy to fold into our larger list of city locations to do this work at. So I think we're at about 27 total that the CRC is reviewing, and it's kind of up to them how many they want to put on the public ballot. As I understand it, they could decide to put all of them on and just let it be, the will of District 7, or they can fine-tune it a little bit and just include a handful, maybe a dozen or so proposals. Any other questions? Sure, yeah, I can't talk too much about it, but if you folks want to talk about it. So I'm still kind of catching up. Emma, who is incredible, there is no one that can fill her shoes. She's absolutely amazing. But like I said, I'm going to be working a lot with small businesses, working a lot on transportation projects. Supervisor Melgar's office, in collaboration with District 11 Supervisor Cheyenne Chen, and the SFMTA and the Ocean Avenue Association and the County Transportation Authority have been hosting town halls on the K-Rapid project. The second of 2 town halls was a week from right now. It was last Monday at CCSF. So we've been hearing from small businesses, merchants, parents, neighbors, young families, speaking in support of the project, speaking in opposition to the project, and we've been diverting those comments to the MTA staff who are working on the project and who are taking feedback into account and helping that shape how the project gets implemented. So doing a lot of stuff with the K-Rapid project. I don't staff on this, so I don't have all of the nitty-gritty details, but I do know that there are some really exciting updates on the zoo from the supervisor's office. Just this last week, a legislative package that Supervisor Melgar worked on, which is a loan of about $8.5 million, passed through the Budget and Finance Committee, so now it needs to go to the full board. But that would kind of provide a lifeline to the zoo, because we know that there are some institutional challenges that have been happening at the zoo, and there's a new CEO that just recently took over who's working through those challenges. But at the end of the day, also, the zoo houses and feeds and takes care of a lot of animals. So if, the city and county of San Francisco needs to pay to feed and make sure that they're all healthy. So the zoo's had some challenges. There's a potential $8.5 million loan to help it kind of move on to greener pastures and sorting out their books a little bit. But it looks like everything's going pretty well, and that the zoo's on an upward trajectory. And I have some cards here, but also I'll just give you my email if you'd like it. It's my first name dot last name at sfgov.org, so that's JOE.ADKINS at sfgov.org, and I'd be happy to hear from you and help you out with anything that we can in the office.
Are there any questions for Joe? What we got?
Yes.
I have just a real general question. I'm curious as to why District 7 is the only district that does this. So my question is, do the other districts get the same amount of money or the same a lot of money that they get to distribute? They just don't have to listen to their constituents?
So, in my answer, I'll start by saying yes and no, and I'm not sure. So what I mean by that is, as I mentioned kind of at the top, the way that San Francisco's budget is written, it kind of starts with the mayor, and then the board has an opportunity to sort through it item by item, and then it goes back to the mayor, so it's just kind of a negotiation between the two branches of government, basically. Any member of the board can really advocate hard and make the case for why they need $50,000 for that project, or $30,000 for that project, or and in fact, other offices do that. It's just not through this participatory process. So what's really cool about what District 7 does is that it gives the community an opportunity to directly say, A, this is a project idea I have that I want to get funded, and then B, have the public have a chance to say, of all of these projects, these are the ones that we like the best. So it's cool in the kind of direct democracy component portion of it. And why more offices don't do it, I'm not entirely sure why.
Because it's messy.
Well, other than to say
the fact that you do go through this process, because it would be a lot easier if you just said, or just had the supervisor say, I want this, without listening to us or without getting the input. So, thank you.
Yeah, no, so it is a big lift, and I know Emma has been in charge of it for many years, and really did a lot of work getting it up to a point where she could kind of pass the baton off to me before she went on family leave. But it is a big lift for the staff, so I think that might be part of why a lot of offices don't do it. But again, it's something that Supervisor Melgar thinks is really, really cool, and it's a direct, it's like a direct democracy thing where folks get to submit their ideas, and then if they're good ideas and their neighbors agree with them, then we'll fund those ideas and do them.
Joe, if you could put your cards on the table there.
Yes.
Thank you so very much. One more round of applause. Love our city manager. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Because we don't know if it's a house that people review or not.
So the question was if. Okay, so I won't kind of publicly comment on specific on specific proposals. I will say that if you have any specific questions, you can email me and I'll let you know where they're at. Right now, as I mentioned, the CRC has been given all of the proposals. There are as I mentioned, there are a handful of proposals that the departments said we don't think that this is feasible.
We haven't heard back, that means it's still feasible anyway.
So the slide that was up about the timeline on the website is kind of the.
That's 2
It's,
weeks.
that's okay.
Early.
That's okay. But so these are kind of the public dates, but for my kind of internal, what I've got going on to keep this process going, the CRC has been sent all of the packets, including the ones that the department said we don't think this is doable, just to give them all of the information that's available, because hypothetically, say there might be 2 projects that are similar-ish, but there's one that a department said isn't feasible, and if I'm a CRC member, I might look at that and say, well, these 2 projects were kind of going towards the same end goal, but since the department said no to this one, maybe this one will, that's just a hypothetical. So the committee has received the applications and the comments from the departments. They could choose to say, you know what, we just really want to fight for this one. We want you, Joe, to go back to the department and see if they can, if we can change the scope of the project a little bit. That might happen. So the projects that the CRC does not think should be included on the public ballot, I will be reaching out to directly before the ballot gets published, because none of these are bad ideas, and we would love for all of them to be funded. But I'll reach out. So we're not there yet. Basically, nothing's over for anything yet.
Joe, there is a question from the lady here.
Hi there. Okay. Yes. 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 First, thank you very much for all of that hard work and advocacy, because I know that it's not. That's your stop sign. So thank you for that. There our increased safety improvements, pedestrian safety improvements coming to Monterey. Just had a briefing with MTA about that last week. And there's a bunch of stuff. There's going to be some flashing beacons. There are some repainting some medians. There's a whole suite of things that are happening right now. There is separately a DPW repaving project, and MTA didn't want to spend the money and the resources to install some stuff right now that DPW is then going to rip out, only to have MTA put it back down. So right now, MTA is looking at what they can get the ball rolling on now that's not going to be repaved, and then wait until after the DPW repaving is done to finish it up. But there are safety improvements coming to Monterey.
John? Let's go there, Mark. Watch your cables there.
One of our recent coffee with the board meetings, somebody came almost a year ago, who lives on Congo, and they were complaining about the amount of traffic on Congo. And it wasn't until I actually stood there on the corner, it's bumper to bumper. If you ever stood there on the corner of Monterey and Congo, it's because Lyft and Uber, their computer direction sends them that way. I guess Google Maps sends people that way to avoid the traffic on Glen Park. So I set up a petition. So some of you may have signed it thinking it was a sign-in for this meeting, but if you read what it said at the top, it actually says that we are asking for traffic calming on Congo. So I just made it simple. There's traffic calming, please. We don't really know we're not traffic engineers, but we would like to have something done to reduce the amount of traffic on that street. Sarah wants a traffic light.
Joe, thank you again. Put your arms in this. So can we get, Yaron, do you want to come up for just a moment, and can you scroll to the budget treasurer's report, please? This is important that the community knows. A big part of why we want to make sure this happens before 8 o'clock, got a few minutes, is we have less than 100 members. So much of our membership drive needs to come from the people in this room, the people watching. Let your neighbors know the kinds of things we're doing, the spring flings in the park, the concert for the conservatory. Now we're the fiscal sponsor for Detroit Steps and the conservatory, and now looking to expand that out. We need operating funds to do that. Please encourage your friends, neighbors, and you me to become members. And Aaron can share where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll just echo everything that Michael said. Right now we have about $6,800 in the SNA account. That is a good number. I will say it is early in the year. We have not had many expenditures on behalf of SNA so far, really just renewing our insurance and the expenditures to put on the spring barbecue. We currently have 103 member households with active membership. What I mean by that is there are 103 households that have paid dues in a way that they are still active members. As a reminder, our dues are $30 per year. From the day that you pay the $30, you are an active member for the next year. So right now we have 103 member households that meet that criteria. There are 30 households that have expired in the last 3 months. So if you're thinking about this and you're like, hey, I don't think I've paid dues in the last year, feel free to email us. We can tell you whether or not you're current. If you're reading this and you feel oh so left out that you are not in the 103 member households, you absolutely should. That's a fair thing to feel left out about. Luckily, we've got QR codes in the back for Zelle, for our PayPal. The SNA website also has our Zelle information, our PayPal information. We also take checks. We also take cash. If you were at all struggling to find out how to give us money, please come talk to me. I will tell you. Other than that, that's where we are. So we are in a good fiscal place, but as Michael said, everything we do is funded essentially by member dues and donations. So we are really counting on support from the Sunnyside neighborhood to keep SNA up and going.
But why don't you send out reminders then? Why are you relying on people to, like, working on it?
We're using some new tech to do that. Thank you, Nero. Appreciate it. I do want to do a quick call out. We have 3 business members in the Sunnyside Neighborhood Association. Martini's number 3 cleaner on Monterey and Forester. Jenny is a business member. We've got Ty's Barbershop and his wife Maria's Lucky Lashes, also on Monterey. Those are charter business members. They contributed $100 each. Please patronize their businesses. And anyone that's got connections to, I don't know, Friends Bar, the pizza, we're talking now to Ocean Ale House. It doesn't have to be in Sunnyside. Sunnyside people frequent there. So let them know. They get exposure to the Sunnyside neighborhood, 2,700 homes, and there's a lot of benefit to being part of the group. So thank you very much for that. You're on excellent news. We're in such a better state than we were. I think last year we had 85 members, 103 now current, 30 expired. We can probably get back. That's fantastic. Do we want to talk about, with the last few minutes left, a few participatory budget number of applications we've put forward?
Okay, so we're gonna jump around a little bit. So I'm Cecilia, the secretary. So I'll talk about the participatory budget projects and proposals that come from Sunnyside because the vote is gonna happen before we have our next quarterly meeting. First, the official SNA one is about the combo and circular triangle. So if you go through there, the Public Works have done multiple projects over the years. All the triangles along circular, except this one, has ADA compliant walk-through ways. This one is completely overgrown. People have to walk the active traffic way. So that's the proposal to clear it out, create an ADA compliant. I used to push my strollers on the, in common traffic. So first one, second, Ishura Steps Plaza. We have a beautiful community painted steps now. We're working on the archway, and Rosario specifically leading the team, and Ted. You will notice there are a couple of planters now. We can make it even more beautiful. I think if you think about Monterey, it's a really, really trafficy, fast vehicle speed, and there's not places for pedestrians to sit and create the awareness that people live here and walk here and enjoy their lives here. So creating public spaces like that will help draw attention that Monterey is not a highway. Next.
I can speak briefly
Yeah.
to that.
Okay.
So one of the proposals is multiple neighborhoods in District 7. These containers store the emergency supplies. We have $25,000 in Sunnyside to buy supplies. We have nowhere to put them. The money's been there since 2018. So we got a ballot measure on this one. It's for Sunnyside, it's for Lakeshore, Park Merced, and St. Francis. So it's multiple neighborhoods will be served. They'll each, provided within the 50 grand, get the containers that then can store these emergency supplies. When we're activated by San Francisco Fire, we'll have it at a staging area where NERC can make use of them. So this should garner a lot of support. It's multiple neighborhoods, but everything you've heard, anything coming from Sunnyside, please consider voting for those, and then anything else throughout the district as well. But we do well on these with District 7. So when the vote starts, June 1st, thank you again, Joe. I don't know if he's still here. Yeah, it's going to be very much a get the vote out initiative. So share that. Anyone over 16 can vote, multiple people in a household. Yeah, we're really excited about it. We think this is going to make the quality of life in Sunnyside continue its upward trajectory. Do we have anything else? There are two. They didn't have a lot of supporting data.
Do you want to talk about first? Yes? Question?
So currently, the staging area for Sunnyside is Sunnyside Playground. An interesting update there is Rec and Park wants to cancel that memorandum of understanding. They're saying parks are only for recreation. So, big battle that I and many others are fighting. We successfully lobbied with Fire Chief Crispin and went to the Department of Emergency Management because the Parks Commissioner said, nope, our remit is only recreation. So we went over their heads, and now they're saying, okay, you can stay there, and actually now they're gonna let us store equipment where NERT is actually supposed to activate. So Sunnyside Playground for us.
For the Sunnyside Elementary School Traffic Safety Improvements Project, this is basically, there's three parts to this project. One would be to reconfigure the white zone around the school to increase more like curb pickup and drop-off space for people dropping off their kids in cars. Right now it's very constrained and there's lots of issues. And also we are requesting some traffic calming to reduce and deter speeding along Hurst and Flood towards the school. The speed humps have done some, but not frankly enough. And I think some people are aware that somebody on a bike was actually killed, hit and dragged by a vehicle about 18 months ago in front of the school, and then another person lost control of their accelerating car and ran into a fence across from the school. Yeah, these are real things that happened. So there's definitely a need, and SMMTA recognizes that, and so they've been working with us about what exactly would go into the scope of this project, but there's definitely a recognition that something to deter this reckless driving and speeding associated with pickup and drop-off at the schools is a good idea. So that's that project. And if I can, just for one very quick second, nothing to do with participatory budgeting, this is the last week that signature gatherers are collecting signatures for the regional transit funding measure. This has nothing to do with the SNA. I'm taking advantage of the fact that I have a microphone in my hand. If you have not signed the petition and you are interested in signing it, please meet me after the meeting. What is it? The regional transit funding measure, which will keep BART alive and also fund Caltrain, Muni, and AC Transit.
We do have another one, except the leader for that, Estelle, is not here. So we're gonna go back to her and collect more descriptions and come back and tell you exactly what she proposed for Hammerlock Bridge, the bridge, pedestrian bridge going to the back of the Park. Can I look at the events, please? I'm gonna do a call back to Miran's. This is the events we're putting on the rest of the year. Some of the dates are still TBD, but we are doing quarterly cleanups around Circular. We're going to do a Slowhurst block party is on August 22nd, I believe. Sunnyside concert, we're working through the schedule right now. Garage sale, I heard it was really popular, thinking about the specific dates. We might actually turn it into some kind of highlight event on Monterey. I'm working on it. And then Sunnyside Walk in October, Halloween celebration on Slowhurst, which is a huge draw. If you have never been, I highly recommend. Some of the families along the street give out adult appropriate refreshments. So not just chocolates. And the holiday party. So please help us spread the word. I know if you're here, you probably already subscribed to the blog and you get our notification, you probably pay the dues. Please tell your next door neighbors as well, because I think we definitely are working on doing a better job to publicize. We need to upgrade our tech, our website, a bunch of stuff. We're all volunteer around and we need help. Help from financially and help actually just manpower as well. With that, go to the last. We're gonna publish a community survey. This is we didn't, I guess my fault, I didn't put a QR code up there, but we're building a community survey that's not just for paying members. Everyone in Sunnyside boundaries can respond, and we'll have a raffle for out of the responses that we collect in June, May and June period. Please, we'll share on the website. Please help us spread the word. Hopefully by August we'll have survey results to better understand what our neighbors want and how they see Sunnyside Neighborhood Association help. With that, today's raffle.
We have this lovely bottle of Klein Rosé. I guess it's pink wine. I don't know what rosé, but I have some tickets gonna just throw them on the table here and pick one out. And the number is 176594.
594. Oh,
Eric wins.
well, come get
He's
the other
good?
gift then. Get the other gift.
What's the other?
Come on. You don't need the wine.
I throw it back to the crowd.
Okay.
Wow. Very generous. Thank you.
You're gonna be sorry, it's a good model one. 176595.
Right next to it. Wow. I need to mix it up a bit more. There you go.
Yeah, really. 176592. 176592.
Hey, somebody's coming forward. Oh.
No, yes. All right.
Oh, please come again. Yes.
Oh, we're done.
No, there's another raffle. Are there 2 gifts?
Oh, okay, yeah. That was whichever one you like.
It's maple candy.
Okay, thank you.
So the wine is still sitting here. I thought the wine matches her hair. So the last number is 176603. 176603.
Oh, Jennifer, hooray!
Enjoy the wine. It's probably still cold.
Okay, we are officially over time. Thank you for staying. I need a quick show of hands, please. We're giving some thought as a board to some of the outreach. Who here thinks it would be a good idea to email everyone that we know an email address for in Sunnyside, even if they haven't asked to hear from Sunnyside? Hands up if you think that's okay. Because they can opt out, they can say no thanks. We need to grow membership. Now, same concept. Who thinks it's okay for SNA to text people we have a modal number for if they haven't given us explicit permission to do that? Okay, so email is a yes, it sounds like. Okay. Good. Just looking for some community input right now. We're going to be surveying people too. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Great meeting. We'll be back here August 10th. Please save the date and also look on our calendar for all this upcoming activity. We've got a great year ahead of us. Thank you, everybody.